Welcome everybody. Well, I really appreciate you turning back in. What we got here, the 5x5 we're going to try and turn into a Sport Quattro. And we're going to mock things up, and I'm going to show you where to cut and how to cut, and just considerations of what you want to do. I also have to pull some other stuff. I'll show you what I'm probably going to cut and the reason why I'm going to cut it. We have to take off the chassis jig, get it off the rollers, put it on jack stands, because we need to put the entire drivetrain in it, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what we're going to do to make it up. It's either going to be a relatively short episode of just cutting, installing, and doing the mounts like I did before on the A2, with just a little bit of different stuff. Not too bad. But we have to figure out our drivetrain. That's a big thing, and I think I figured it out, which it might be kind of cool. What we got here is a Eurovan 2.5 liter block with a 7A head from a 1991 Quattro 20 valve normally aspirated. They don't fit. You have like three threads on the 20 valve bolts, or head bolts, in order to lock it down. So this is just a mock-up motor. That's all it is. We have the 5,000 turbo Quattro transmission. That should give you an indication of what we're going to use for a full drivetrain. What it is the Quattro transmissions originally, horrible ratios. I always thought they were terrible. 4,000 Quattros, fantastic for going out and rallying or for performance-wise, but they're buzz bombs on the street. It's really high revving on the highway. I thought the best compromise was the 5,000 Quattro. It had really good linear ratios all the way through. It was relatively quiet, and it didn't have any of the gaps that their Quattro transmission had. So let's get over to here, and I'm going to show you the reason why, or where I'm going to cut and where not to cut, so we can make this thing work. So let's get on with it. All right, for where we're going to cut, what do we have here? These are the lights. They are from a Passat B2, pretty much. The Sport Quattro, use the inner, not the outer. These are Chinesium examples I bought off of Alibaba for like $180 shipped to my door, I think it was, or it could have been more than that. I can't really remember. They weren't that much. Where they go? They go right here, right like that. They have no brackets to bolt to it, so I got to build all my own brackets. But who cares? This is all I care about. And the car is going to be just it's going to be go down to the ice cream shop car. Just to front around with. Here's the grill. This is how the grill is going to pretty much sit in there without some minor modifications. The lights are pretty much right in the center. I had more room on this side of the grill than this side of the grill. So when this light is removed, I can adjust and trim this side to go back and forth, and I'll make all the parts and pieces in order for it to fit in here and line up with the grill. Depending on where it's going to be, don't really know. Also, I'll show you the next thing that we also have to take into consideration for cutting the front end. Our next consideration for where we're going to cut is this bar. This bar is included in the Cool Wheels kit. And what it is, it's basically this bar right here. If you take a look, this bar right across here. Oh, let me show you. This bar right across here is what we need to put right there. If you take a look, this right here is the hood latch, or the hood catch, the secondary hitch. I'll show you here. This thing just has to be turned around because they just bolted it up just for, I assume they put it there for shipping. Well, we also have to figure out, okay, well, I want it pretty much equidistant from this side to this side. So I want to cut right here. You see where these two holes are right here? I want to cut see there's a lip right over here supporting this structure. I'm going to try and cut right here to give me plenty of room just in case I need to make a bracket. Same thing over here. I'm going to give, just on this side, plenty of room to cut, to make a bracket and cut straight down. Just give myself a big hole. This stuff I am going to trim later. the bottom part, I'm going to probably trim this right here, cut it right here, then cut this thing straight down to right there, go right, you know, and it'll give me plenty of room to go in there and make a Sport Quattro. Let's break out the Sawzall and give it a 5-second cut. Now that we have the Sawzall out, let's get rid of the battery box because we're moving the battery to the back. Not the center of the car like there are Quattros for better weights for distribution. To the back because we're going to have to jump shot this shit box. It's a lot easier. We can reuse this. One thing I just noticed, the two-wheel drive has a mount right here. This is where our Group A mount is going to go. So, what I have to do is cut that off. Now let's put it in. Or try to. I hope the transmission tunnel is wide enough for me to do it. Always hook up your engine mount bolts, at least on the way I'm doing this. This is really sketchy. Hook those up first. Now I got to put the subframe bolts up, and that's why I saved all the old subframe bolts right here. So I'm just going to zip those up with a gun, and that's it. Well, I might have found one problem. I had to bash the tunnel a little bit. Well, here are the first clearance issues. Right here, the rear differential housing butts up against this well right here. So what we got to do is cut down through here and cut down through here and just pull it back so we can get it clearance. Clearance. Well, what was interesting was, put that right there. What was interesting is I just thought we were just going to zip the subframe right up. First time this has ever happened to me. When I cut the front end, the frame rails were under tension. It might have been, I don't know, this car's never looked like it's ever been in an accident, but it was under tension and it flailed out when I cut them. I didn't think too much of it. Figured, oh, it's not going to affect anything. Well, when you look at it, the subframe was out probably about not even a half a centimeter, you know, about this much, where I just couldn't put the bolts. I says, what's going on? So I put the come along on the two tow hooks, pulled it in, it bolted right up. You saw in there the stuff that we have to do for the clearance on the tunnel. We might have to do a little bit more, don't really know. I know we're going to have to do clearance for the shift linkage. That's just something we're going to have to do. We got the motor in, it's straight. Now we have to get on to cutting out the old engine mounts, putting in the new engine mounts, so that's the actual support for the front so it won't move around. And then we'll get to the transmission mount so we can dump the subframe and start working on there. We're back at it. What did I do? Well, I turned the camera up to move it over to this side. I put the jack stands in a little bit different place, and the car sits a little bit down so I could get the jack underneath the engine to lift up the motor mount. Well, I just want to take pressure off because I want to keep the motor exactly where the motor mount places it. I lifted it up just a hair because you can see the decompression on the hydraulic mount. You lift it up, now what I have to do is take a Sawzall. I need to cut this mount off. That radiator mount is going to be turned right here because my radiator is going to be going sideways. Just like in Sport Quattro, just like I did in my Quattro, just like I'm going to do in the rally car. All the same. Well, I think we need to get on to it. Let's get to fabricating. If you didn't see the previous episodes for the A2, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, what we are trying to accomplish is to get the most amount of real estate in this area as we can. We also want to have the block, the engine, the drive, the block and the transmission all supported by the body, and using the block as a supporting member of the chassis to decrease the flex from the subframe. So the whole thing is that you see people put mounts, I reiterate this, they put mounts on the subframe. You know, if you go into all that problem, why bother? Just do it on, if you do it on the chassis, you create a stiffening member of the chassis through the engine. And if you use as a circular mounts like this, they're right out of, I mean, if you take a look at them, they're right out of the Group A manual for the Escort and Sierra Sapphire, or 3-door Sierra, Sapphire, and Escort Cosworth. My Sapphire has Group A mounts, and my 3-door has Group A mounts. So what we got to do here is replicate those. And I'm just doing I'm not doing anything special, I'm just doing what Ford did. So basically here's what I pull off of the control, off of the control arm, where I want it. And if it goes right here, that way, when the subframe's out, when you drop the engine, it'll drop straight down. No problem whatsoever. This right here is the mount off of the off the round beam for the Merkur, where this goes right in. The good thing about this is we don't have to make a mount, we don't have to judge, we don't have to bend, we don't have to do anything. All we have to do is cut and trim. I want this mount to go right here, so what I need to do is I need to cut this down to here. I need to cut this off and cut these back. That's pretty much it. I mean, everything is measured up. All we do is put it on here and weld it in. It's like a no-brainer. Why am I blabbering? Let me just get it done. Mount's cut up. Here is the control arm. One thing it is when you have the full suspension that you pull it all apart. One of the pluses, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the A2 video or not. See, it goes right in there, and you have the bolts already set. You don't have to know. You don't have to go searching, measuring, and all this other stuff. Oh, what's the size? What's the size? Well, hey, the factory already determined the size. And they go right on. That's pretty much the mount on where it's going to be. I don't think that's that bad. Here, let me move the camera over. That is the initial setup of the mount. We have to grind this stuff off and tack this in. I'm not sure. I'm going to probably grind that down a little bit, then make ears come off right here and right there. Just for a quick setup for now. I don't know. I'll connect them in the back with a plate. But for now, the main thing is also I want to get this thing set up so I can just use one nice long screw and socket and just blast them out. Let's make some stuff. Now we have the rough position of it's going to be right here. We can move this up and down a little bit, plenty of room. What I did is I found this from the scrap pile. That's going to go right there. All I have to do now, when I I do it, and just make a cut on where it's going to be, probably about right there, and cut it right here. Slice it down here, but I got to first drill those 2 holes. Then we'll use this part probably for the other side. Don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Now that we have the plate here, I mark where I want my cut to be. Remember, we have to see we have to make sure that we can get the Allen key in there. So I'm going to take the grinder and just cut this thing down, just cut out this much. Let's just say about down to here. Just make a notch, and that's all I'm going to do, a notch, and just put it in there so we can slide it back and forth. I mean, we're going to trim everything else, you know, clean everything up later, but let's just make the initial cut first. There, back far enough. I think it's going to work. Right there. You have to keep it absolutely straight up and down. I think it's going to be good. Now, what we have to do is get the top part. And what? I just have another piece of steel. It's going to go right there, no problem. Just have to cut it. One thing I want to do right now is I'm just going to tack it. I want to get it here to the point where I can easily manipulate it and get it more centered. So if I could tack this bracket only, right there, that means I can, that stays right, yeah, that's pretty close. But it has to go up like that. If I could tack that, then I can manipulate it, or not manipulate, but I can bring everything. If I need to tack it right here so I can move it around a little bit. Actually, right in the middle. Let's try that. This is all cleaned up. Before I tack that, I'm going to tack the bottom. I just clean this up just roughly. What I need to do is make sure this plate is absolutely stationary. Because you don't want, I mean, the big thing is after you weld it, you don't want it to bend or flex or anything like that under tension, because if this thing is not completely flat on the block, what will happen is it'll be under stress. So you want to alleviate as much stress as possible on the on at least the mounting points of the engine. And one more check. Yep. Now we weld it or tack it in. Then we'll put the other one on here and start cleaning it up. There. Let's put this top plate on next. That's tacked on the bottom. What we need to do is to make this mount right here. Seeing how most people don't have presses or brakes, whatever, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it right here just enough so I can bend it easily. I'll weld it in afterwards, but I need to get that cut and bent so I can cut the rest of this and weld it onto here and use all of this, what's left over, for the other side. Remember, don't cut all the way through, just enough so it bends. Okay, that's tight. Where do I want to weld it? Well, I want to weld it far enough up here so I got plenty of grab, pretty much. I'm almost thinking about making a V groove just to follow. Yeah, I think I just well. I'm going to make a V groove just to follow that, so I got all contact all the way around. Then we'll box this section right in. Actually, make it look like a real engine mount. Mark this up so it kind of looks professional, maybe. Yeah, see what happens, you know. Go over to the bench. I'm going to weld it enough so it's actually stationary. Not so much as, I mean, I still have to weld in plates right here, just to make it look nice. But the main thing is, put enough weld in here so when I put it back on, I can do the other one and just keep going. And when I finish everything, it'll all be at the same time. Because when I pull this old motor out, you know, just because it's a mock-up, you know, might as well do it then, you know. So let's go over to the bench. Now tack together, weld it up in here, weld it up in here. Big thing, this was actually a very big thing. I wanted to weld it here so it wouldn't flex or break. I glopped the weld inside here. It's not finished because what I have to do is build a plate from here to here and on the sides to actually complete the mount. The main thing is I just have to get this in here so I can start working on the other mount. And the best thing about welding, it takes my 20-degree shop right now and actually turns it into like 40 degrees, which is just absolute luxury. So let me throw this back on. We're going to zip onto the other mount. Another reason why I hate these Audi engine mounts is you can't get a socket in there. It's way too tight. Absolutely. That's why I prefer making my own. At least you can service them, unlike Audis. Yeah. Oh shit. Ready to put in, or ready to start mocking up where we're going to put this mount. This is the other half of the steel that we use for that mount over there for the bottom portion. Same thing, I have the seatbelt bushings right here. I want it on the bottom. Let's just put them right here. We'll just you know, finger tight. Next thing, we have the other half of the control arm mount from the round beam. Where are we going to put it? Well, we're going to be like this. And it's going to go down like that. And I think we don't need this right here. And I might, like this. Will come off like this. Actually, come off like that. So we'll cut here. Cut here. What do we gotta do this? I'm gonna cut it like that. We don't need the bottom part, so we're gonna go straight over. Let's just zip it out. Something like that. Oh, I think I need to build in some room. Well, you know, like this much. Let's start right here. There we go. There's our Ford bolts. You can always tell they're always blue. Now, I don't need to take any more off. The big thing is, we have a starter we have to clear for the big solenoid, and we have to get this bolt right here. So, and this I marked as the bottom of the mount over there. Anything above that should be good. Found this. This is the bits and pieces of the seat frame from the Eurovan. I went and I just drilled a hole. Quick, easy. Let me see, I'll just throw it on here. I mean, I really like the steel that's here. So let me just clean this up and grab me off a piece of this, and let's see what we got. Let's tack that bad Johnny in, and let's see how we can make it perform. Getting there. Whew. Well, what I got here is I have that tab that I made. I put it inside this. So I'm going to have to weld it inside this, then make ears to come down to give it more support. The big thing is this is pretty close. I just have to grind that just to give me some semblance of where I'm going to tack. Then I can pull it out and weld the whole thing up. Whew. Well, let me just pull this thing off. I'll grind it up, then we'll tack it in. Well, that's nice and tacked. Hopefully it won't move, so I can get it out and weld the rest of it. Let's cool that down and put it on the bench. Now we have to make a small plate for this. I was looking through the garbage. What we cut off of there, right here. Take a look. That is pretty bloody close. All we do is hack this stuff off and trim it a little bit. Then we can make another plate that goes down here. But what this will do will give us enough to stabilize the mount so we can take the jack off and leave the engine standing. Out of the scrap bin was another piece that I had to cut off of there. I just trimmed it just a little bit, and look, here is our plate to support. I mean, we're going to make other ones down here, but this will be just good for now. Alright, let's wait till that cools down. Let's put that thing on and let's start making the transmission mounts. Let's see if it works. Why couldn't you do something that easy? Let's let the jack down. Let's see if it friggin' falls. Sweet. I guess we have to do the transmission mounts. So let's leap into action and get those going. Moving on to the transmission mounts. We have both engine mounts in, they're maxed up. I mean, they're not finished, of course. You know, we still have to dress them up. Let's get on to the transmission mounts. And the first thing I have to do is I have to pull the subframe and pull the transmission mounts off the transmission in order to get enough room so we can have space to cut up the, have enough space so we can grind off all the undercoating so when we weld the mounts to the actual chassis. No better time than the present. Let's get it done. While that's down and I'm sitting here, I'm going to put the plates that I made. I made plates twice. When I did the A2, I just did another set. So let me just throw those on here. As you can see, it's pretty tight there. And it's, how am I going to put this? I'm trying to use up all the stuff. And this is going to be an experiment. So I did the other shocks. There were other mounts with the bottom half of the shocks, and I'm trying to use up everything. So what I got, this is the top half of the shock, right here. pulled this out, the piston. You know, these things are pretty tough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and make a tripod effect. And then I'm going to plate in if I need to. But I think that's going to give me tons of stiffness because it's really not holding up too much. But as soon as I plate the insides, it'll just be a natural triangle. This is the other part of the other side of the subframe that came off the Merkur. I'm going to use this part right here, and I'm going to use this part right here to put on the chassis. I don't have everything memorized, but I'm just going to cut it up through here, down and over to put on there, and that way I can get this all squared away where it'll just plop right up, bolt in, plop right down. No better time than the present. Let's go. Here's the mount. It's all stationary. It's all welded. This portion is welded, and this portion is all welded to the chassis. So it should give a relatively decent structure. Let me just zip this, and I'm going to tack these together and fit them to the car. Now, what we have to do, make the initial mount. I think it's going to be right there. Now that we got this welded in, it's cool now, no problem. We have to trim it up a little bit. This is what a framing square is for, and a pen. What we kind of want to have is a ridge that comes up like that, or a lip. It builds strength into this. Even though the bolts are here and this is all there, this part right here will flex. And you want to kind of clean it up. So what we want to do is that these are the spacers that I'm using in order to use the cap head bolts. You want to, you put it at the very edge saying, okay, well, that's as far as I can go right there. So if I'm looking at that, and I have to adjust it over to here, this is the very far edge. Well, that is pretty much, I want to go a little bit in, and this is where I'm going to grind it. Right there. If I can grind it right there and fold it up, I only need this much of a lip right here, so I'll just take this off while I'm at it. Right, now before I weld it all up, I have to put it back on the car, put the bolts in, make sure the spaces are correct, then start welding it all. Because I don't want to, right now it's really not doing anything, and it's not going to be put under any forces. If I could sit there, put all the bolts in with the spacers, weld the spacers to this, then I can cover in and do all the welds around here, pull it off, and there we go. We can just keep going. Let's put this back on so I can weld the tabs, but I'm not going to weld the tabs just yet because I want to do the other side and get this thing done with. I didn't film making this because I already filmed the other one before. Pretty much the other half, or the other side of the differential mount on the subframe from the Merkur, that's this. Just cut up, to the other shock that I chopped up. What I have to do now, I bolted these things together. This is the way it's going to sit. I might have to grind a little bit down here to fit onto the pan, which I already used a die grinder to clear up all the undercoating and make a clean metal to weld it. First thing I want to do, I want to weld this in, then pull this out because I don't want it to get too hot. Then I got to stick it up there, tack it, measure the rod, cut it, and put it on just like the other one. So let me just zip on the, if I can talk correctly, let me just zip into doing that. This is how the mount's going to sit, right inside here. All I need to do is just tack it in, right there, so the mount, so the shock mount will come right out like this way. I'm gonna come out like this, and you know, do the rest of it up. So no better time than the present. Now what we want is to get the length of the piston rod when it comes from here down to here. If you take a look, it's a lot shorter than the other one. We pretty much need from the hole center to right there, which is the top part, would be about 3¼ inches. Close enough, we can weld the rest. I want it more there than anything else. Move just a hair over. See, that's why you tack things. Not weld them fully. Just to move it over just a little bit more. Whew. I think we have to end it for that episode. Well, what do we got? Well, we got the engine mounts. They're in. They're not fully in, of course, you know, and they're not dressed up. They don't look pretty, but they're in. We don't have a subframe underneath there. That's cool. We have the transmission mounts. The only thing that is kind of sketchy is actually the mount welded to the body, because I only did it in a couple places. I need to get the motor out so I can get in there and you know, make sure I can clean it up and then weld it better. But it's there. That's the whole thing. It's there, and we're doing this form of, we need to get this done. We need to go back and put the differential, because that's, I'm going to end it right here for this episode, because I think it's getting too long, and I'm trying to shorten, I want to shorten a lot of this stuff up. I mean the episodes, because, you know, from what it seems, nobody really wants to watch a long episode. Even though I watch all the Cold War motor stuff, which I think is kind of neat. I like it, you know. Recap, engine mounts, transmission mounts. We have the engine basically, this is just, you know, the mock-up motor in. It's here. Next thing, we're going to pull out the 5000 diff, and we got to make the drive shaft, or at least we're going to set the drive shaft up. I measured it all up. I think you're going to be, it's cheap, you know. I'm reusing parts, which I think it's going to be okay. Until next time, hey, I'm just a hillbilly recycler, just making some, you know, making some stuff. That's all, you know, just cool. So you can do it. I'm nothing special. You can do whatever you want to do. Just put your mind to it and get yourself a hammer and a grinder. There you go. So thank you very much for showing up, and talk to you later.